Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Just Talking About Films podcast. My name is Ian Sargentson.
And my name's Luke Taylor, and it's great to be with you to just dig into some films and talk about films and what we've seen this week. We've got a great topic to bring up, and really looking forward just to chatting through some great films this week.
Yeah. So, Luke, what have you been watching?
Well, I've had a decent week. It's funny because I was away at the weekend. I thought I'm not going to have anything to talk about because we've got cinema tickets booked, but we haven't been yet. First thing I did was last week we were talking about Bruce Lee. I hadn't finished Enter the Dragon. I have now finished Enter the Dragon, which is it's not a great film. Bruce Lee, don't get me wrong, Bruce Lee is amazing in it. All of the stars that a film deserves belong to him. But it's when you look at it, you go, "What a shame!" The directing's passable. It feels like a 70s TV show episode. You know, that level of quality, which is such a shame because Bruce Lee's amazing in it. Yeah, I was a bit. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching him. I don't think it's a great film.
All right, you'll have Matt after you.
I enjoy it, but I enjoy it. I don't think Matt would disagree that as a film, it's not the best. The script's pretty clunky. The direction's pretty workman-like. What makes it's Bruce Lee. And again, I felt like I shared last week, just that sadness of we never got to see him working with a great filmmaker.
Yeah, and off the back of that, I did similar. I haven't watched it yet, but I put Dragon on my planner. So the Bruce Lee story, so I'll have a look at that.
Well, I did watch that.
Did you?
Yeah, I did watch it this week. Again, it's not a great film, but it's a great subject. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. And it's a strange one. I was thinking about it as we were watching it, because it's got that strange little subplot of the demon chasing him the whole of his life. And is that a metaphor for his family, or something he couldn't get past, or you can't escape your demons kind of thing. But then I was thinking, why is this in the film? Because clearly he wasn't stalked by dreams of some demonic figure that was after him. So why include that? And then it got to the end of the film, and I think I know why. Is because he has a fight with it at the end and wins. Without that, the film doesn't really have a climax, because his life doesn't really have a climax. He's just on the verge, and he's gone. And I think without that, maybe you'd get to the end and it just would feel like an unfinished film, maybe. So maybe that's why it's there. I don't know, but I enjoyed it enough. It made me think, what's happened to Jason Scott Lee? I've not seen him in anything for years.
No.
And he's pretty good in that. It's a reasonable good Bruce Lee impression. So I enjoyed that. And then I've done two films that were, those films that you've just never seen, and you're like, I'm going to hit those off my list now. Yeah. So I did Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
That's strange, because it must be, I think it's because of the response we had on Twitter with the GIFs and stuff.
Yeah.
Because I've got that on my planner as well this week. So I've got, based off our conversation last week with Matt, I got Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, and Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, which I don't think I've seen it, but it's so highly rated that I think I need to watch it.
I had never seen it, and to be honest, I wasn't sure what to expect. But I do love, the Wild West stories. I'm a big fan of Red Dead Redemption, on the PlayStation. Yeah. Just that cowboy lifestyle, and I got to say, the dialogue in it is amazing. It's witty banter the whole film, and I love that. It's a buddy film, really. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. But boy, it's got three montages in it. I mean, the first one is a famous one where the raindrops keep falling on my head. The Burt Bacharach song. And you're watching and you're going, I'm enjoying this. I don't see how it fits the film at all, but it's a weird song choice. It's fun, but it's weird. And then the second one is like there's this whole sequence in the film where they go to New York on the way to Bolivia. And the whole New York sequence is a montage of still photographs. I was like, did they not have the money to do a New York set? But then they've gone to all the effort. It's fun, but it's weird. And then there's another montage near the end, which is like more of a traditional one. But it's like, that's quite a choice. Every act has a montage in it. But
you enjoyed it overall?
Yeah, I really did, and totally got invested in. At the beginning, I was a little bit like, I don't know where this is going. I'm not 100. By the end, I was 100% in, and great dialogue between the two characters, so well written, and it just breezes along. It's just a nice, breezy, fun film.
But I mean, it's interesting, as I say, because when we put a tweet out and a post on Facebook saying who's your favourite duos and or double acts in cinema, and we had a post on the Twitter and a Facebook seconds apart with the same GIF, which was Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid. So,
they are a great duo.
Watch it.
Yeah, it's well worth it. I don't know, but I thoroughly enjoyed that. And then the last film I did, there's a clue behind me there. I did Bridge on the River Kwai, which I'd never seen. And it's not the film I thought it was. I thought it was about a mission, a crack troop going to blow up a bridge. There is that, but that's not what the film's about at all.
No. I haven't seen it for a long while. I think I must have watched it on TV with my dad when it was on or something when I was a kid.
Yeah. But
it's another one that's, again, so highly rated that I just need to go back to it and watch it as an adult, I think.
The only thing I knew about was the bridge blew up at the end. That's all I knew. And so you spend the whole film, but actually you're so invested in the story of the guys building the bridge, and the prisoners of war building the bridge. And Alec Guinness is brilliant in it, really good. So yeah, I spent the whole film thinking, I don't want them to blow the bridge up. And the end's tense because you've got these prisoners of war you've been following. Are they going to get caught up in this? What's going to happen to them? Are they going to blow? And they're going to blow the bridge up because that's the only shot I've ever seen of it. It was really tense and a really good film. Really good.
Very good. So about you? Yeah, there's a couple that are, three that are on my watch list that you've watched this week that I want to get to soon. I'm just going back a bit to Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Is it a Western? Yeah.
It's a Western, yeah. It's proper Western.
I do like Westerns, and I would like to talk about that at some point because although there's a lot of Westerns that I like, there's very few that I really, really like.
Yeah.
I mean,
I like the idea of them more than perhaps most of the films.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I like the idea or stuff that I've read in books or stuff more than I've seen in the execution, really.
Mm-hmm. No, it's good for they're on the run from the law, and they decide to go to Bolivia, and start a new crime life up in Bolivia. So it becomes less of a Western and more of a Bolivian at some point. But it's funny because they're trying to commit the crime and they don't understand the language, and so they're having to learn how to say, everybody against the wall in Spanish and things like that. It's fun.
Yeah, I think Young Guns 2 and Unforgiven are probably my favourite Westerns. But there's others that I like. But again, as we talked about recently with the Superman films, there's just something missing in each of them. Even like the Magnificent Seven, the remake, I liked it, but I think it could have been better. True Grit, I think could have been better, the remake. And then we'll have to do a focus on it one week because there's so much to say, like with the Clint Eastwood films and stuff. So
yeah, it's worth it. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid it's probably up there amongst one of the favourite Westerns I've seen.
Very good. So this week I've only got to two films. Well, 2.5. I'm halfway through Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, is it? Multiverse.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying it so far. It's a bit busy for me with all the stuff going on, like the comic thing and flashing up and splitting screen and stuff. It's a bit busy, but I like the general story so far. I like the concept to a degree, but we'll see. So I'm halfway through that. But I've revisited two films this week. One that I remember liking, but couldn't remember why. Apart from I remembered very little about it, just that I knew I liked it. And the other one that I've talked about on social media is probably the most traumatic film I've ever seen and the scariest film I've ever seen. It has affected my life even to this point, watching it as a child. So the first one I watched was Runaway Jury.
Oh, right. I don't think I've ever seen that.
Which was an adaptation of a John Grisham novel, but they changed it slightly. The main theme of it, in terms of, not the main theme, the stories are similar, apart from it goes on to challenge the gun laws and the gun industry in America. Whereas I think in the book it might have been tobacco. But yeah, there's good performances. It's tense. It's clever. There's a couple of twists that you don't know. Some bits are a bit far-fetched. You think, would that really happen? But the acting's solid. It said is Justin Hoffman, Gene Hackman, very good in it. So yeah, there's a decent cast. I think it's a lot of courtroom stuff, but some bits about getting control of the jury. So yeah, I liked it for what it was. Yeah, so it was good to rewatch that. And again, second time round, many years later, enjoyed that. And then the film that has had probably one of the biggest impacts on me in my life is Jaws. So
hold on one second.
That for
I've got a tribute for you there. There we go.
That possibly the first time in 30 years I think I've watched that. And although I still think I'd be hard pressed, you know, if I was somewhere like Australia or South Africa or Florida or something, to go in the sea much past my knee. Still, I think watching it now, I see it as a very different film. I see a lot of the superb filmmaking, the tension, the way the music plays into it, the dialogue, the story, the conflict. That speaks into a bit of what we see now, really, with COVID, with the mayor having to make a decision about, you know, business and economics versus, you know, safety of people. So yeah, I really enjoyed it as a film, particularly the last act. I think the last third of the film, I thought was really good. So yeah,
it's a great film, isn't it? I love it. Just builds so well. Even in terms of the shark, you get first you get nothing in that opening sequence, which is terrifying, where she's thrashing around in the water. Then you get Finn later on. Then you get that great underwater that shot where that guy's on the boat, and then you see the shark underwater, and then just him disappearing, and then so you get this sort of little bit of more of the shark each time, don't you?
Yeah,
and it just keeps you so tense.
Yeah, and that's one of the beauties of it, I thought, was that a lot of the danger was implicit rather than explicit. That it was more tense often when the shark wasn't there. It was just a suggestion, whether it's through the music or a fin or the barrels. Do you know what I mean? You're not actually seeing the shark, and you're like, I can feel the danger is almost palpable.
Yes.
So yeah, really enjoyed it. And it was, and we'll talk about it later with the topic that we've got coming up. But it just shows the quality of Spielberg's work.
Yeah, when you think that was his second feature film.
Yeah,
it just blows your mind.
The same as we talked about E.T. the other week. It's with a lot of his films. It's not like, and various films do it to a degree, but it wasn't like I was watching a film. It's like I'm in Amity. I'm on that beach. I can, smell the sun cream. I can feel the heat. I can sense the danger. I'm there because of the way he creates it.
The dialogue's so natural. It's how people talk, isn't it? There's like that sort of talking over each other, people talking in the background. It just feels so real, the way people are talking.
But just, the way that he gets the sun and he talks about how busy it's going to be and, the sea and the noises and the radio and with the baseball game in the background. It's just...
Yeah,
all the sound. The
sound's amazing.
Tries to engage all the senses, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So with people squirting the sun cream and the smell of the beach and the food and I just thought it was great.
Yeah, and it didn't traumatize you in the same way this time.
No, and then as I say, and it's a weird thing. Maybe I should go and speak to someone about it. But in the North Sea or Blackpool, I might be more, inclined. Well, less inclined for other reasons, but I wouldn't be as scared of sharks as I have been. But in places where I know that shark attacks are more common, I'd still feel a bit edgy, and it's all because of that. When I first watched it, nothing affected me as much as that. Not Freddy Krueger, not Jason, not Halloween, nothing. No jumpy things. There was just...
It's because sharks are real.
Yeah, that was it.
Mm-hmm.
So all the other things are dismissed because, it's not really real. But I mean, a couple of ghost things when I was a kid, don't know, but, Poltergeist or a couple of others that you'd watch because it was cool and everyone liked to be scared. But then I watched this thing about shark. I know sharks are real. I know there's a real danger to me of sharks. That was it. So, yeah, it's just a thing. So that would be a good topic for anybody that's listening to tell us what film has scared you the most. Is it something, something traditionally horror, or is it something else? Or is that the biggest impact on you, caused you the most disturbance, I guess?
Arachnophobia.
Yeah, that's another one. It's a similar thing.
Freaks me
Spiders
out.
are real, aren't they?
Yeah. I know spiders don't jump. I know that. I know that the spiders in my house will not jump in my face. But ever seeing that film, when I don't want to get too... I just think it's going to jump.
You don't want to take the chance, do you?
No.
I know that there's not going to be probably sharks in the North Sea at Seaton Carew, but I'm not taking that chance. I'm not an idiot. The same... Do you know what I mean? And I have, I guess, an Indiana Jones style fear of snakes as well. I'm just not into snakes, the way they move everything. So I have a genuine fear of snakes. I'm same with sharks, and we're going slightly off topic here, but I'm fascinated by them. So I'll watch any programs that are on about snakes or sharks. But yeah, genuine fear of both of them. But loved Jaws, absolutely loved it. And I've got my list for films that I'm going to watch keeps growing, but I'm going to try and get to a couple of those on the list this week. So,
have you booked any cinema tickets?
No, not yet. I've seen a few things that I do want to watch. I think I want to watch, and maybe you've seen this. What's that? Oh, is it A Quiet Place? Is it?
We're going to see that on Friday.
So there's a double bill because I haven't seen the first one.
Oh, have you not?
Double bill at the local cinema, so I might book that.
Yeah.
Because it's two films for the price of one, I think, and then secondly that I get to watch them back to back.
That's good because I think it picks up straight away from the first one. A Quiet Place is a really good film. Really good, and it's a one to see in the cinema because you get the tension in the cinema. And
that's the kind of, and it's if we ever do anything on horror, because I think it's kind of the genre that I watch the least, and I think we've talked about it before, but that's the kind of film that I will engage with. Yeah. One that builds the tension, also whether it's aliens or, monsters or something. I don't mind that. I'm not really for the, ghosts or weird things come back slasher kind of things or the indulgent gore. I'm not really into that. I want something that's going to make me feel tension the way that Jaws does. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I get that. And The Quiet Place does that. Oh, it definitely does that. You'll enjoy that. I don't know about the sequel. I haven't seen it yet, but you'll enjoy that a lot. But it was the same as that other one. Was it Birdhouse, was it? Yeah, that was okay. Yeah, but I like the idea of that it was, again, a suggested threat that you're not quite sure. It's the same with the computer games like The Last of Us and stuff that you play. I like where you're not quite sure. It's more building that tension rather than, a clown that lives in a drain. I'm not really into that. Do you know what I mean? Oh, dear. Well, that's what we've seen this week. What have you watched this week? Tweet us. Let us know on Facebook. Don't just let us know what you watched, but let us know what you thought of it. And if it's films we haven't seen, remember we'll have them to our list as well. Brilliant. So, Luke, what I want to talk about, want us to talk about, and hopefully people get involved with this week, is, I don't know about you, but there's certain things in life that I'm interested in, but then there's always people that seem more interested in it or more knowledgeable on it that kind of then makes me feel not inferior, but I don't know what I'm talking about. And one of this is in films, like with wine. I like a glass of wine every now and then, but we know when people are smelling it and they're getting caramel and smoke and licorice. And, I don't, it's just nice. It's nice or it's not. Or stuff like that. People are knowledgeable to different degrees. And I always found that with films. So I've always enjoyed films. And I think I'm more knowledgeable about films now than I have been. And I enjoy them in a different way, as we've talked about. But one of the things that would mark things out was me. I never was really interested in directors. I couldn't tell you who directed a film. I could tell you who maybe acted in it or whether I enjoyed it. But then when I talk to people and they go, yeah, well, that's obviously that's classic Kubrick or whatever. I was like, I don't know. Do you know, is that who directed it? And different things, or Nolan or Cameron or whatever it was. That's their style. And I wouldn't often be able to link things together because I just didn't care about the technical details that much. It was more about, was I entertained? Whereas that's changed recently, that I recognise directors and recognise the work of directors more. And I think that really struck home when I watched Nomadland the other week, with just how brilliant Chloe Zhao's direction was of that, in making it feel so close. And not just with the camera work and the shots and the aesthetics, but the dialogue, the things that they're getting, the vision they've got for the whole thing. So it really did hit home more. And as I say, over recent years, I have become more aware of that. But for you, how much does who directs a film play into your interest in that film?
For me, it's always been a huge amount. I think that's because when I was a kid, I wanted to be a director.
Right. Yeah.
When I first understood what a director was and what a director brought to something, it was something that I was immediately into. I didn't know names at that point. I didn't know, you sort of discover that as you go. But the first real director that had an impact on me understanding what a director was Steven Spielberg. I knew a Steven Spielberg film. I knew if it was made by Steven Spielberg, I was probably going to like it. I knew he had a style. I knew he had such a talent. So for me, it was understanding that and understanding that the director, whilst you can get, it depends on the film, of course, you can get directors who are just workmen who are hired for the gig and, they do a job. But then you get directors who are visionaries and directors who are the driving force behind the film getting made. And I got more and more interested in directors once I decided I want to become one. So I would seek out films. So yeah, it's always had a huge influence. Now that doesn't mean I'll see every film Steven Spielberg makes. I haven't seen Lincoln. I haven't seen, what's that other? I haven't seen Bridge of Spies, I don't think. So it's not that I'll immediately go watch every film, but I assume a Steven Spielberg film has a mark of quality about it.
Yeah.
So whilst it won't be the only thing that makes me make the decision of whether I'll watch a film, it's certainly a big one. So, for example, Denis Villeneuve, who first film of his I saw was Prisoners. And I was just blown away by Prisoners and how well made it was. So I immediately, when Sicario came out, I was on board. I normally wouldn't have gone to see a film about, the borders in Mexico and America. But because he directed it, I was like, I need to go see that. And I thoroughly enjoyed that film. I only saw Blade Runner, the new one. I'm not a Blade Runner fan, but I saw it because he was directing it. And again, so well made.
Yeah.
I don't think I particularly liked it as a film because I don't get the Blade Runner thing. But I really, really well made. I didn't think I'd ever go watch a Dune film. It had no interest for me whatsoever. But now that he's doing the one that's coming out, I'm going to go watch it.
Yeah.
Arrival was one of those films that I was so excited for, not because of the film itself, but because it was him doing his own high concept sci-fi. So I think for me, it's always been a factor, but it's not the only factor.
No, and I think I understand that more now, because I used to just think, especially when I was younger, as a child and through my teenage years, I enjoyed this film. Mm-hmm. But if you'd asked me why, I couldn't articulate why, apart from I like this part, I like, so I was very simplistic, and I would like a good revenge story. Mm-hmm. Someone's been, had something done to them, and then they want to go and reap revenge. That was it was very simplistic, but I couldn't tell you what I liked about the film. I wouldn't have been able to articulate the part that music played into it, or lighting, or symbolism, or anything like that, or the wide angle shots, or closing in as the dialogue. So I wouldn't have been able to get any of that, but I do now. But I think I'm noticing more patterns between films that I like. So I think the first director that I really So Spielberg, I think I've liked the majority of his films, and I think he's really top tier when I look at directors now. But I wouldn't have been able to link them dots until recently, really. I think the first one I recognised that I liked every film that they seemed to be involved with was Clint Eastwood in direction.
Right.
I think that's partly because he maybe directed films that were of the type that I was interested in. Do you know what I mean? So Gran Torino I liked, but then there was Unforgiven, American Sniper, Mystic River, and then stuff like The Changeling. Even I thought that was really well done.
What did you think of his latest? Oh, I don't know if it is his latest one now. He's probably done another one. He's a fast filmmaker. With the Richard Jewell one.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, but I think that was not. It was less about the direction, although I thought the direction was good, but the story was utterly compelling. Do you know what I mean? So
he does seem drawn to certain types of stories at the moment, doesn't he?
Yeah.
People who've just had a real injustice done to them.
Yeah, and the same with The Changeling. It was based on a true story. Again, horrific story of injustice. So the real, and they're often about miserable people. Do you know what I mean? So like Gran Torino and Unforgiven, it's so he was probably the first one I recognised. But now looking, say the top tier is Spielberg. I think for me, I don't think I've seen a film of his that I didn't like. He's like Tom Hanks. As an actor, there's so many.
Have you seen Always?
Have I seen what?
Always.
I haven't.
There's a film of Steven Spielberg you won't like. It's not good.
But there's even the films that he didn't direct that he was involved in. Do you know what I mean? As a producer or an executive producer or whatever the titles, that they're just quality.
I mean, he set himself up in a position where he was really able to champion people. And because he became so big, so fast, he had so much influence, people would just wanted to work with him. I mean, I see the Back to the Future poster behind you. That film wouldn't have happened without his backing, because he was willing to take a gamble on Zemeckis. That film exists.
Back to the Future, he say he was involved in that. He was influential in making that happen. The Goonies, he was in and around that. So yeah, there's so many things. So I think he is probably up there with me. And then there's other directors where I like most of their work. So like Tony and Ridley Scott, I like a lot of their films. Particularly Tony Scott, I think. I like a lot of the films he directed. I like his style. I like the content. I like the pace of them. So like Enemy of the State, love the way that's done, particularly at the time with all the technology things that maybe it's a bit dated now because technology's gone on, but still stands up.
T-Siders, those guys.
Say what?
T-Siders originally.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That might be why there's a bit of affinity there. But then there's other directors that are a bit hit and miss for me.
Yeah, I mean, there was Spielberg to start with. At first, he was my concept of what a director was. Then when I hit 12 and Batman came out and Tim Burton came on the scene, it was this immediately recognizable, I know what a Tim Burton film is, and I know I'm going to like it. Now, I know what a Tim Burton film is now, and I know I'm probably not going to like it because he's really gone off the radar.
Well, yeah, that's it for me. On the other side of the coin is that I probably won't rush out to watch any Tim Burton film.
Not now. I used to.
It's either weird, too weird, or too dark.
Yeah. Well, when I was a teenager, that was my wheelhouse. That was where I wanted to be. But there's other. I mean, there's other. You look at. We were talking about Fight Club. You know a Fincher film now. Yeah. He has such a style, and it's not the same. I mean, The Social Network and Fight Club, even though they're a million miles away, you can tell it's got the same mark of quality behind them. And again, anything David Fincher does, I'm willing to give a try.
Yeah, as am I. And you know my thoughts on Fight Club. But as I said last time, I can appreciate what a well-made film it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I like that. Same. Yeah. So I'm a fan of some of his films, but not like Spielberg, where I would be inclined to go watch it. With Fincher, I'd need to know what it was about. But again, it's like Scorsese. I would probably watch a Scorsese film because I know what it's going to be about. Do you know what I mean? He's very very not limited, but he sticks to what he does. And
He is,
does it
although
well.
he's done a few films that are very different to his normal. Like Age of Innocence is very different.
Yeah.
What was that one about the priests, the monks, the priests who went to Japan? Silence.
Yeah, Silence, great film. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's not a film I ever have any desire to watch again.
No, it's horrific.
Yeah, it was so good. So yeah, I know, but yes, Scorsese, you know, he's doing his best when he does a gangster film.
Yeah.
Although I wasn't a fan of what was the latest one he did.
The Irishman.
Yeah, it was a bit long for me.
I liked it. I liked it in the same way that I'm not saying the comparable, but I liked it in the same way like The Godfather. That it was just a beautiful, well, not beautiful, quite horrific, but a story that was just spread out. And yeah,
there's another director though, Coppola. He comes on the scene. He's got The Godfather, Godfather Part 2. You've got Apocalypse Now, and then nothing really. I've seen it certainly in the last few years. He's one of those people who just seemed George Lucas. You know, great first Star Wars film, but then as a director, it's just nothing. And it's weird how someone can burst on the scene really, you know, really well and start really well and not sustain that. Like Tim Burton, I don't think Tim Burton sustained, but Spielberg has. Fincher is sustained for a long time. James Cameron was doing really well until he made Avatar. And now that just seems that's his life now.
Yeah, I mean, it must be interesting because it must be interesting from that perspective. The pressure must be on to keep doing that, and then you've got more control over the projects you take on and different things. But yeah, it's
especially when you're the recognizable force behind some good films and you're known for it. There is this pressure to keep on going, isn't there?
Yeah, and it's like with Christopher Nolan. I know I'll probably really like 1 and 3 of his films. The other 2 will leave me incredibly frustrated.
That sounds about right.
You know what I mean? Like the Dark Knight trilogy. Just a masterpiece, just an absolute masterpiece of filmmaking, of taking something that needed doing and just, you know, almost perfection. And then, you know, my thoughts on Tenet. So it's like...
Yeah. Sorry. Somebody's at the door, but Amelia's there. It's okay. I mean, with Nolan, I agree. Some of his film, I like most of his films. Tenet pushed it a bit for me. The Prestige is still, I think, a work of genius. Love The Prestige. But even I like Dunkirk. I know a lot of people were a little cold on Dunkirk, but I thought it was so clever.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't not like Dunkirk. It's one of them things, and I think they suffer from it a bit. So every time a Nolan film comes out, where it's Tenet or whatever, the hype, the build-up is massive. The expectation is massive. Then you've got the expectation set, so it can fall below it quite easily.
Yeah.
Whereas like with Spielberg, I don't think it's the same. I think there doesn't seem to be the hype around the things. Like, what's the project he's got coming up?
He's doing West Side Story.
Yeah, West Side Story. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what he does with that. But I've not heard loads of hype because it's Spielberg. But if it was Nolan doing that, or even Cameron, there'd be a bit of buzz because I guess their formula is different and there's always a bit of controversy and edginess to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think Cameron's a victim of his own success in some ways.
He is, yeah.
Nolan.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. And then, it's hard to know. I mean, Cameron was riding high, but I think Titanic was too big. How do you follow up Titanic? And Avatar, well, yeah.
Is there any directors out there that you think are underrated?
I think Denis Villeneuve is very underrated, but I think he's becoming more and more rated as time goes on. I think Chloe Zhao, as you say, from Nomadland, is, you know, she's done. I think she's about to become more rated.
It'd be interesting to see what she does now.
Yeah,
with a bigger budget and more high profile.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think that's something we need to acknowledge here, that what we've talked about is a lot of men,
Yeah.
a lot of white men,
Yeah.
and that it's we've got to acknowledge that I think that it has been a male-dominated area for so long, and it is good to see people like Chloe Zhao and Catherine Bigelow getting more and more. I think Bigelow's been probably a trailblazer, but getting more and more recognition for what they do.
Yeah, I think so. I think so, and it's important because I think women don't, unfortunately, they don't get the same chances a man would get in the same position. You know, you can have a great film if the next one's bombs. That seems like that's it. You direct on TV, and that wouldn't happen to a guy. You know, you just look at. I mean, one example for me is Joe Cornish. Great first film, Attack the Block, so good. But then follow that up with, what was this? What was it called? That King Arthur film, The Kid Who Would Be King. I mean, if he was female, I don't think he'd have been given another film to make. That was terrible. Did you watch that?
No, I didn't.
I was so excited for it because it's a film he had in mind since he was a kid. That's, you know, and I remember as a kid, I wanted to see a film about a kid and King Arthur in some form. You know, that kind of that. I get it. I had that dream as a kid as well, and it was terrible. Such a disappointment, and it's just like he'll get another chance. There's no doubt he'll get another chance, but he wouldn't if he was female, I don't think, and that's a shame.
So if you're listening to this, it would be interesting to know, I guess, a couple of things I'd be interested in are how much does who directs a film play into your, you know, interest in a film. So for me, it never used to, because I was totally unaware of who directed it. Wouldn't be able to tell you their name, if it was a man or a woman. So, but now it is more of a not an issue, but more of a thing in how I watch films, because I appreciate their work more than I used to. I used to just think it was about the actors and the story, and whereas now I appreciate the role of the director in it. So how much does that matter to you? And then who are your favourite directors, or who would you be interested in going to see a film by just because they're involved in it? It'd be really interesting to see from the, you know, the people that follow us and listen to us, that what their opinions on those things are. Yeah,
because to get in touch, you can get in touch on Twitter, you can get in touch on Facebook. I think that's the only ways to get in touch, isn't it?
At the moment, yeah. I mean, they can email us or on YouTube.
Yes, or you can comment on YouTube. And of course, if you are watching on YouTube, please hit subscribe or hit like or write a comment below. That just helps us. If you've got answers to any of the questions you throw on, put them in the comments, and we'll try and get to those in a future recording.
But then there's also a lot of maybe older directors, because you were saying you were watching some Hitchcock stuff.
Yes, yeah, I was on it a few weeks ago on a bit of a Hitchcock run. But I tell you what, when you watch an old Hitchcock, you really do appreciate very quickly how good he is and how much a director can influence a film.
And what was it about that you think really stands out?
Hitchcock knows how to make the camera work. He knows I think he's always thinking about the viewer. He knows how to make you look in exactly the right place. He knows how to completely draw you in. And I think there's very few directors I think can work a camera quite like Hitchcock could.
Like, again, I think I appreciate like directors like Ken Loach as well. You know, that again, narrow in their remit, but important, often bring important messages. Like I, Daniel Blake, I thought was a really powerful film. Sorry We Missed You, I think, as well. Like that. So I think he's one that I would say is underrated. Still, I can't remember any Spike Lee films that I've watched, although there is 2 or 3 on my list, starting with Do the Right Thing. So yeah, becoming more aware of more directors, I think, because there's probably loads of films that I've seen by directors, but I couldn't tell you who directed the film.
Yeah, and there are plenty of films where the director's almost anonymous in it, in a sense where you have people who are hired and do a good job and can pull a film together, and really the person behind it's the producer or the scriptwriter, and really they're the creative force behind it. But when you get a director who really is, I mean, I don't like his films, but you've got to say Michael Bay films are definitively Michael Bay films.
Yeah.
He has a level of control that a lot of directors don't have. Whether he should have is another matter.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the same to a degree with Quentin Tarantino.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would say I like 50% of his films, or 50% of his films that I've seen, but they're very distinctive style.
Yeah.
So you know what you're getting. But some of the bits, the quirky bits, I just don't like. Do you know what I mean? So there's a lot in Kill Bill, for instance. I just
I
do without this.
I'm not massive on Kill Bill. Not massive on Kill Bill.
But Pulp Fiction, I really do like.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's those different things, and then I guess you get into the fact of how much does a director, although they've got the creative force, but then cinematography, because you've got cinematographers, how much do they
influence? A good director will make sure he hires the best cinematographer. Yeah. I mean, what's the guy's name? Roger Deakins, that's his name. Roger Deakins. Okay. He's moved into directing now, so he's doing less cinematography, but he is so distinct and so good. He directed it.
He did 1917, didn't he? The cinematography for that.
I think so. Yeah. Hold on a second. Let me
just that continuous
credits. Yeah, he did 1917. He did Blade Runner 2045. He did Shawshank Redemption, No Country for Old Men, Fargo, Prisoners, Sicario, Skyfall. I mean, all of those films look amazing, and it's a very underrated role, I think, cinematographer, because the director gets the credit if it looks nice.
Yeah,
and the director's the one who says this is what I want, but it's the cinematographer who makes it look so good.
Yeah, I think it is becoming more and more high profile. The same, I think it's the cinematographer like Deakins in 1917. You got the recognition from that, and it is, becoming a bigger deal in the Oscars. It's a bit like the score, like we talked about with John Williams, that Spielberg used him so often because he was so good. You know what I mean? It's like, we get this person. And the same with Deakins, I think. But he's probably the only cinematographer that I can name.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of others, but which is a shame because they are such an influence on a film.
Yeah, and I think often, as you said, that all of the credit for that gets lumped in with the director.
Yeah, and I'm going to start doing a deep dive on some cinematographers now. I'll watch all the Roger Deakins films that I can now. But yeah, it's an important job. It's one that it should be appreciated more.
Brilliant. So get in touch. Let us know what your thoughts are on directors, whether you don't care, you do care, who impresses you, who doesn't, and any other aspects of that. That would be good. Have you got any? So you're going to see this week? You're going to see A Quiet Place 2?
Yes, Quiet Place 2 at the weekend on Friday, directed by John Krasinski. Just as we go talking about directors, who I think is going to turn out to be a really significant director. I think now. I mean, I think he's got past the fact that he's Jim on The Office now, and I think he's gonna. Quiet Place really blew me away. I think if that's the mark of what level he can be at, I think he's going to make some great films. And then on Monday, I'm going to see a preview of Nobody.
Preview of
Nobody.
What's that about?
Which is, it's stars. The guy out of Breaking Bad. He plays Saul Goodman. What's his name?
Bob Odenkirk.
Yes, yeah. Starring him as it basically looks like he's a nobody, who secretly is a John Wick level, trying to get away from it all. But it's the trailer is just he goes, he's this put upon guy who gets mistreated and he goes off the rails, but he doesn't just go off the rails. It turns out he's just been in hiding for ages, and actually he's got an armory full of It looks like it'll be fun anyway.
Yeah, it sounds good. Just jumping back quickly to directors, I think one that recently that I really noticed and need to watch more of their films was when I watched Rush. I was really impressed with how good Rush looked, how, by Ron Howard. Especially when it's motorsports, and it's not always that easy to capture sports on camera because it always looks a bit fake. I just loved the camera that he used, just the different grainy effects with the water and the close-ups of the raindrops and stuff. I just thought that was really, really good.
It's an interesting one, Ron Howard, because I wouldn't say he has a distinctive style, but you can always trust him to do a decent job. He gets brought out. I mean, when you look at the films he's made, I wouldn't say you'd find a through thread and go, oh, that's a typical Ron Howard film. But he's done a lot of films I like. He's done a lot of films I don't like as well. He got into the whole Da Vinci Code thing a little bit too much for a while. And then it was just like, right, I'm done now. But he has made some good stuff.
But yeah, so it's just a part of, say, maturing and becoming more aware of what makes a good film and how much goes into it rather than just a good idea.
Yes. Yeah.
Because there's been plenty of films that have been good ideas that just haven't been executed well enough. As we talked about the other weeks with remakes, and there's so many films that you just think in different hands, they could have been so much better.
But I think that's one thing you'll notice now as well, as you're watching more for the direction, you'll notice poor direction on a film you would have otherwise liked as well. You'll be, and there's something off with this film, and you'll notice when direction's bad.
Yeah. So, yeah, good. So I don't think there's anything else that we've got to just talk about today, is there?
No, I think we are good. Although it'd be nice to say, those of you watching, if you have topics you want us to discuss like this, we could do you could ask us, what's our top 10 war films, or something, all that kind of stuff. Write them in the comments, send them to us via Twitter or Facebook. Be interested to know what topics would you like us to discuss.
Yeah, I know, or also let us know topics that you'd like to discuss.
Yeah.
So, your top 10 films of the 90s or whatever, come on and chat to us about them, or, whatever it is, you heist films, westerns. We've touched on westerns or horrors. Luke and I are both we're not that big in that, but if you are and you want to come on and discuss it and try and convince us, then yeah, anything like that. So let us know, what films, hidden gems that you think that we really should have seen if we were doing a podcast about films that we need to watch them. And let us know anything that you think about the stuff we've discussed this week.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, it's been great just spending time talking about films.
Yeah. Thanks. See you next week.